make the live thing.
No.
You can say it again now. And
Fabric box.
See, you said it. No. All right. So I think we're live. We should be by all rights. Yes, this is the Sunday school edition of Accademia Giallo. And I'm going to turn down the volume on my second laptop so we don't hear myself like bouncing through the screen. Echo. No, but welcome everybody to Accademia Giallo, our live stream Sunday afternoon conversation. One of the highlights of my month, certainly my Sundays. I'm pleased to welcome back the crew here for a discussion of a movie that's 50 years old this year. I don't know if it's as old as our birthday boy. Sorry. Anyway, that's all I'll say. I don't want to embarrass anybody more than I need to on this. So
embarrassed.
Stream. Wow. But
the whole
okay.
objective is to keep getting older. If you don't get older, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
That's true. We should all be like Wilford Brimley in Cocoon.
It's like that old Iron Maiden song where he says, "As soon as you're born, you're dying."
It's true. That's a more pessimistic view, but it's true.
Happy Sunday.
Yes, exactly. Happy Sunday. But actually, we are talking about the antithesis of life. The movie we're talking about today is My Dear Killer from 1972. I was confused because I thought we were going to be talking like one of those direct-to-video Disney sequels, My Dear Killer, about Bambi's mom. But no. Anyhow, this is a film by Tonino Valerii, or should I say, is it Tonino Valerii? Because he's got two eyes at the end of his name.
It's a Tonino Valerii, eh?
Everyone should have two eyes.
Nice. But if not, I don't want to be ableist.
That's right. That's right. We're not going to be, ableist about this.
Yes.
Right.
I just came up with an idea for a sort of a weird biblically themed comic strip, Cain and Ableist. What do you think?
Nice. I like it.
Yeah. I don't know. People want to bash my head with a rock right now. So we're going to talk about this. I should go around and introduce.
Yeah, just you try and talk about this movie. I defy you.
I'm going to get sent to detention for holding up the class. All right. I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. I have John Kitley of Kitley's Crypt and Discover the Horror. By the way, I am partway through your new episode with the interview with Gary Pullen, which I'm enjoying very much. So
cool.
Yeah, I wanted to have that fully listened to by the time we talk, but life happens. But yeah, very cool stuff. And we have you're welcome. Aaron Christensen of Horror 101 with Dr. AC. We have Bryan Martinez of the Giallo Room, and many wonderful to be celebrated decades on this planet.
Why, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yay.
Appreciate that.
Well done. That's the whole point. You got to get to each level. You're like a video game. Just keep getting to the next level.
Well, all right. So for those of you who are watching live or even on the replay, if you want
and wondering why you're watching, here's why.
Exactly. Hey, I'm not going to give them any answers, but you can feel free to jump into the comments and when Bryan just left so he can go leave some comments on our video. So we're going to be getting into this wonderful little slice of Jolly that we were going to talk about late last year, and we had made plans to do so, but it got bumped for something. It kept getting bumped. But, me being the former Boy Scout that I am, I wanted to be prepared. So I couldn't find the film streaming anywhere online. In fact, I had to buy a DVD off of Amazon, and it came and it sat on my shelf for months and months and months. This is My Dear Killer.
Ooh.
It's like a vintage DVD.
Is that the
Yeah, I think it's Shriek something or other. It's wonderful because it's got those like early 2000s, animated DVD menus where like the buzzsaw comes in. There's like really bad looking CGI blood and there's a scream, and the special features include trailers.
Can you hold that up to the screen again, Ian?
It's Shriek Show.
Shriek Show. Yeah. That's the one that the one that I first watched it on.
Oh, okay. I was going to say you were going to hold up your brand new spiffy Arrow edition or something. Look what I got, guys.
No, it only on Blu-ray format. It only comes with the
Vinegar Syndrome.
Vinegar Syndrome. Yeah, the
essential. It's on a 3-pack. It's their Forgotten Gialli Volume 2.
Yes, Volume 2.
Forgotten. I want to ask about this because there is a moment in this movie that is more shocking than any moment we've talked about in the history of this class, and we'll get to it. It does not involve a death scene.
I know exactly where you're going. So yeah, we'll
how
put a pin
is
in
this
that.
a forgotten Giallo film?
Well, I
Is
think
it
part
because
of
that
it.
scene they wanted to be buried, or what? No.
I think part of it is that because Valerii didn't do many giallos, he just did this one. He's mostly
Really?
a spaghetti western director.
Yeah.
He did My Name Is Nobody, Day of Anger. So he's much more known in that milieu than in the giallo. So that may be why more people don't come around to it, as opposed to like a Martino or Fulci, etc.
Ian, like when I went, so I haven't seen this movie since that Shriek Show one.
Mhm.
When I saw it again for this, that scene that you're referring to was like, oh, that's right. Yeah, that's why I don't watch this one all the time.
At least not with other people around. Am I right?
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
So it's kind of shocking to me. I don't know what folks. This was recommended, I think, in one of our emails. Like, what should we talk about? And I think it was brought up as a recommendation.
John was pushing hard for this, wasn't he?
Is that right, John?
Yeah.
Okay, so I assume that you are a fan of this film.
Yes.
Just what are the high-level opinions going around before we get into what it is and what it's about? Do we like My Dear Killer? Do we love it? Is it like, okay, all right, thumbs up? And Bryan, with caveats, I understand you're not endorsing the scene that we're talking about. Okay, I'll just put that out there. In fact, I should put that on the banner.
It's like I have my own thoughts on this film. I think it deserves more credit than not, because if you look at the entire neo giallo, I hesitate in saying movement, but the newer stuff that kind of like apes a lot or finds their influence from these movies, this is one of those movies that like you kind of see it replicated a lot with the POV scenes, with the actual blatant black gloves. There's a lot of cool stuff in here where like if you fast forward to like, I don't know, the Onetti brothers stuff or whatever, you kind of feel like, oh man, they must have watched this movie right before they filmed theirs, you know. It just has a lot of real staples to like what giallo truly is. You know, it's got a lot of red herrings, it's got a lot of perversion in it. It's got a lot of just it's like I know we talked a little bit beforehand with some of the recent films that we watch, where these are like true staples of the film or of the genre, like Eyeball and Strip Nude for Your Killer or whatever. But this one, I just feel like there's a scene where they're the killer is calling somebody with the you know the leather gloves or whatever, using that old European phone or whatever. Like it just feels like those, I don't know, dozens of homages that you see nowadays. You know what I mean? So it's got a lot of cool stuff that I do like from the movie. I will say I'm not going to bother spending $60 on that Vinegar Syndrome thing, which probably is like much more now, to just get this film, because the other two films on that set, I'm not a huge super fan of, that I need those or whatever. And this film isn't going to make me like buy that set or whatever. So,
well, you know, I guess I don't know when the Vinegar Syndrome release came out, but I mean, this is the 50th anniversary of the film, and to what we were kind of discussing, you know, there might not be people banging down the door for a My Dear Killer, you know, anniversary release, but I'd certainly like to see one. I know there was an interview. Oh wow, is that the Vinegar Syndrome?
Yep.
What? Nice. That's thick. What all is in there?
Besides My Dear Killer, Girl in Room 2A, and the French Sex Murders.
Oh, okay. So it's like it's 3 like full discs in a
Yep.
slipcase. Okay,
Yep.
I thought it was like, looked like a coffee table book or something in there. Fair enough. So John, tell me why you wanted to talk about this movie in particular.
I had just gotten that box set and had recently watched that when I think we were talking about what should be next. For a movie that starts off with probably the one and only decapitation by, what the hell is that?
Steam shovel.
It's like a-
Steam shovel, yeah.
They call it a dredger, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So when that starts the film off, where the guy getting picked up by that's like, okay, you got me, I'm in. Plus, you have, like Bryan was saying, you have a lot of the ethic or the aspects of the Giallo, you have George Hilton as the
with a mustache,
with rocking a mustache,
chef's kiss.
Plus, I mean, it's just a really good whodunit because there's red herrings left and right. There's a lot of brutal killings. The one with the buzzsaw is completely out of left field,
which is on the cover, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and it's it's effective. It's done really well.
Until he drops it, and then
until he drops it and it runs over his foot.
And then he's like, "Oh, geez, that was a terrible idea."
Yeah,
taking his toes off.
But then you also have, once again, you have connections to Paul Naschy, because you not only have Patty Shepard, who is in a couple of his films like Werewolf versus the Vampire Women. You also have Helga Linnea, who is also in Horror Rise from the Tomb and Mummy's Revenge. So there's a couple of Spanish, well, I shouldn't say Spanish actresses that worked in Spain with Naschy, amongst a few other films. So immediately got my attention when I seen their names in the credits. And I think it's a really well-made film.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like, on it, look, okay, so low-key, I didn't want to, delve too much into this because it's kind of pulling away from our discussion regarding the film. But I saw this right before, for this show. I saw this movie once again right before I went to go see that new Batman movie. And it's the reason why I enjoyed the new Batman movie more, because this plays out more like a detective film. And I really enjoy that shit. I'm on board. At the end, right? We're talking spoilers, of course.
Sure.
When George Hilton's Inspector character just kind of goes about the room and tells them his reveal or whatever. I'm so down for that stuff. So after I watched that, I went to go, I saw the Batman in not so legal format or whatever.
Good thing this isn't being recorded
or live streamed.
And why was that alien information? Was this like your Sunday confessional or what?
Yeah. Well, no. My theory is he's saying it because he didn't actually see the movie, because he watched it like a pirated version on the internet, which means it was a dark transfer, so it was darker than
it was actually,
so he didn't even see it. Really.
It was super clean, actually, and I was like,
shame. And here's the link below in the comments.
Movies, yeah. No, but so back to my point is I enjoyed that movie that much more because that one is soaked with noir and detective stuff, right? That's what the big talk is. That's why this Batman movie is so different. But this movie, My Dear Killer, is full of that cool 70s whodunit thing or whatever. And it's weird because usually when we talk about Giallo movies, we're talking about amateur detectives and people that are stepping up to that role. This guy, this movie reminds me of why I love Black Belly of the Tarantula so much, because it does have a detective and he is trying to solve this case, getting to the bottom of what the murder is, versus something I don't think we've talked about it yet, but Bird with the Crystal Plumage, where you have a different perspective on that whole detective thing with a working detective. But always in these movies, the detective always seems like a second hand character or whatever, not the predominant character.
Was that Argento?
Yeah, we talked about it with Argento.
Yeah. You and I, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we should definitely delve into the Animal trilogy. I feel like that should be on the horizon somewhere, right? But with this movie, I was so on board with George Hilton and his mustache and his entire detective role, because usually he's sort of one of the antagonists, or he's sort of in the background, in All the Colors of the Dark. He's sort of not really the main focus of the movie.
I was going to say, where else have we seen him before? Because I knew the name and I thought I
All the Colors of
him.
the Dark, Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward. I don't think we haven't watched.
We haven't done Scorpion's Tail yet.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, he's one of those characters that in the pinnacle of the genre, he was in a multiple of these movies. Just like Edwidge Fenech and Barbara Boucher and characters like that, or actresses. actors and actresses like that.
Well, there was something at one point before Rami Malek played Freddie Mercury a few years ago and won the Oscar somehow. Sacha Baron Cohen was tapped. It was going to play Freddie Mercury.
Yep.
And I thought that in this movie, George Hilton looked like, the mustache wasn't quite that thick, but I thought I couldn't stop thinking that I was watching Sacha Baron Cohen with a mustache in the 70s. Yeah. There was something about
he's much better looking than Sacha Baron Cohen.
I would not disagree.
That guy, makes me question my sexuality.
I understand.
We question it all the time.
So now you're coming out on the live stream.
Yes, I was saying this is just like the Bryan show, all out there. Kind of going along with what Bryan was saying. I mean, I think what I really liked about this one is that I feel like the emphasis is on the detective aspect of it versus the exploitation elements.
Yep.
And yet the exploitation elements are there. You get enough. You get enough of the murders. Obviously the female nudity. You get the black gloves, but it's almost like those are there as the seasoning. They're not the main dish. It's like when people use garlic, it's either a seasoning or an ingredient. And I feel like here it's the seasoning as opposed to like what the show is about.
Yes.
And to Bryan's point about George Hilton, I really like that we have a detective who this is his job. He's on the case. But we're also seeing, like the human side of him as well.
Yes, yeah.
Like he can't get it up in bed when he's on a case, and he's frustrated with his girlfriend's frustrated with him. It's like this is but it never seems to kind of distract from what he's doing. It actually it comments on the fact that this case is taking up so much of his headspace.
It's his life essentially. Like it's what he pushes everything aside for.
And that finale, that drawing room finale, I mean, that's like right out of every Agatha Christie / Murder She Wrote, It's like, okay, all the suspects are in the room and it could be any one of you. And I know, and I love the going around with the mirror.
Yeah.
It's like, what a great way of kind of protracting the ending. And the lights go out. I mean, that's like right out of Stagecraft 101. We're going to actually have a blackout and who is it? We're going to turn the lights back on. And,
and then it ends on that shot, right? Like the reveal, it's just, I love that stuff. It's
so I think even though Valerii is not an actual, he's not a veteran of the Giallo, I think he's just a really great filmmaker, and it shows, as with so many of these Italian directors, that they were capable in any genre. They're just solid directors, and they sometimes just get pigeonholed in a certain one because they're successful. That's where their greatest success lies.
And to your point, AC, like to jump on what you just said, like when you look at some of the shots, like I was going to mention that this movie is so built for widescreen. Yeah. Like it's just like it makes you like look at the entire shot. It makes you kind of appreciate all the sets in the movie. There's that scene in the police station, and you kind of get a feeling where they built that set, and it's so like good looking. Like it mimics a police station so well. My only complaint with him as a director is like sometimes, like when we think of a Danzig movie, right? Like when he's directing, he's got an issue. He's got an issue yelling cut. Like he drags on the scene a little bit. With this one, there's a couple scenes where like maybe they should have left out the scene where he dropped the circular saw and it almost chops off his ankle.
No, they should never have left that out.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. But like in terms of like,
right. You're kind of like, why is that in there?
Well,
because everything looks so beautiful, and then you see something like that, and it's like, oh.
But it's weird because in that moment, it's not like and I understand everybody watching, we are jumping around. We haven't even gotten to what this movie's about.
I was going to say, we should do a synopsis at some point.
It's about 90 minutes.
There you go.
That's
what it's about.
But I just want to say there is a moment where this killer dismembers a school teacher with a rotary like handheld saw. And we hang on we settle on this shot of like the killer's legs essentially, and the saw is kind of like dangling, and then he lets it go and it kind of flops around the floor. But there's a hesitation. It's not like he finishes doing his work and then drops the saw. He's kind of like standing there looking at what he's done. We can't see their face or their body language really beyond like the legs and whatever happens to be dangling into the frame. But it is like this kind of a deliberate thing, almost like this moment of psychosis. Like, I just did this. That and we know from what we know of the killer, this isn't someone who has been a maniac for decades. This is someone who's new to what's going on, so they're still probably in shock by what they are doing.
That's
so they're probably like, I just cut up a woman. I wonder what happened if I dropped this saw on the floor.
Yeah, that makes me revisit that scene in a different way. But yeah, because like there's a little tiny moment where like you can kind of see him shuffling, like, oh shit, like I just but like yeah, like I like what you're saying, because that actually makes me appreciate that scene a little bit more.
Well, thank you. I just want to say this movie had the opposite effect, and we won't get into the Batman. You can read my 3,300 word review of it on kickseat.com, but I really, really hated the new Batman movie.
Yeah,
and
I know.
And this film reaffirmed one of the reasons I didn't like it is because I'm like, I am really watching a detective story in My Dear Killer, whereas Batman, it's got like, it's a detective story. I'm like, about as much as the other movies. Anyhow, what is this movie about?
I have a synopsis if we'd like to go to it.
I would love for you to read the synopsis.
20 minutes in.
No, I'll just take. All right, so here we go. My Dear Killer. While investigating an unsolved kidnapping, an insurance agent is killed in most dramatic fashion, lifted up and then decapitated by a small steam shovel engaged to dredge a small pond. When the lethal heavy machinery operator is found hanging dead in a country barn, it appears to be an open and shut case of murder-suicide until the clever and handsome Inspector Peretti, played by George Hilton, demonstrates that the driver could not have killed himself. Thus begins Peretti's descent into the infamous and newly reopened Maroney case, complete with a tangled and ever-increasing web of suspects and victims, with the hopes that he can eventually get home in time to make love to his sexy doctor girlfriend. That's what I got.
Please tell me you
really
wrote
necessary.
that. Please tell me.
I did write that. I wish I could come up with that extemporaneously, but no, I did write that. That's for me.
By the way, your review will be linked down below. I didn't have a chance to do it before we went on, but
that's all right. Thank you.
But I also want to say
you should look into a career of writing synopses like in the back of Blue. That was a beautiful synopsis.
Why? Thank you, Bryan.
It was. I was going to say the sexy girlfriend thing. Like, what is that doing in an official synopsis? But AC, it's a synopsis that you wrote, so I will.
Well, it's important. I mean, it's what the movie's really about.
Exactly.
The movie's really about him.
Got to solve this murder so I can get laid.
Exactly. So I can finally get my head back on straight, so to speak.
I love you, AC. That synopsis made me love you a little bit more.
Wow. Okay, I like that.
But yeah. So that dredger machine, I don't know anything about how this movie was made, which is why I would love for there to be like a behind the scenes documentary or something.
Because seriously, how'd they do that?
You see, okay, and you think you see how it's all being set up, and you think it's going to play out a certain way with like edits and things. You've got the adjuster going out by the lake. You've got the bright green dredger with that giant clamp, and it comes down on him, kind of a POV. He looks up and he's like, oh shit. I don't know how he didn't see that thing like coming at him or hear it, because it's not a ninja machine.
Yeah.
But you're like, okay, it's gonna cut off his head or something. No, it cuts to a wide shot. It lifts a person up, and it's not like a crappy dummy. It is a person.
It's a guy.
Yeah.
It's a guy.
It's so good.
Struggling.
Back when
So let's just think about this, because on set, that means a stuntman had to stand there and they had to close this thing around his neck so he could, hold on or whatever he's doing. Actually, he's not holding on; he's dangling. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know how they did that.
It's crazy. It's weird.
But the idea, just that, like, okay, just stand there. Okay, we're almost there. Oh, sorry. Can we get the next stuntman in here? Sorry about that.
We made an episode of the Giallo Room back when the channel that got deleted, where the Baron was like going through each film with the different kinds of weapons that they use, right, for murder. And he singled out this movie of it like showcasing like a really crafty killer that pretty much uses what's there, you know. So it's all I love stuff like this because usually, and then the straight razor comes out like at the end or towards the end. It's like, oh, it's such a good flavor of Giallo. It's one of those movies where it's like you're not watching the typical Giallo formula, but it's so soaked in that like you know, genre flavor where it's like you sit back and then you actually watch a real detective try to do his work with all these hallmarks just screaming at you. It's a beautiful movie in that regard, in terms of being a Giallo.
And you learn stuff like when they find the operator who, you know, had disappeared after this incident. He's hung himself, as AC mentioned, and not immediately, but within a couple of minutes of being on scene, our detective Luca realizes that he didn't hang himself; it was murder.
That's
because
so
of the way the feet were resting on the barrel drum.
His
that
neck
he hung
didn't
himself
stretch.
on.
Yeah,
dude, it's the mustache. It's the mustache. It's got to be, bro. Like, it's so good.
He's never been this smart before.
I want more. Unfortunately, not to be the case, right? But like, I wish we would have had so many more George Hilton mustache detective films.
Because I'm sure that would be the reason they would be better, just because of that.
It has to, yeah. Like that's, I mean,
well, Tom Selleck had a career out of it.
No, yeah, but he's no George Hilton, so.
Magnum PI. Oh no! Here's what you call it. George Hilton is Magnum JB. He just solves all these Giallo murders.
Nice.
By the way, was there
the
a
J&B files?
Yeah. Was there a J&B in here?
Honestly, like I wasn't paying attention.
I don't think I didn't see one, but
yeah, I didn't. I don't remember one being. I'm sure you could probably look one up on the JMB website or whatever, but I don't remember being like a distinct JMB.
Tell you what, I did love though is that like the whole like you need a token to use the payphone.
Yeah, that's
like,
what I'm saying.
I was like, oh man, that's a thing. Like there's like give it over. You know, here's a
like
coin for another coin.
Case of the
like
Bloody Iris.
And then the phone. It was weird.
Case of the Bloody Iris. There's a shot like that where like they're using this weird phone that you put a token in.
Yeah,
it's like
loved it.
I've never even
thought about it.
And again, most younger people are watching this going,
"What's a phone?
What is that thing? Why is it shaped like that?
Why are you? What's that?
Why is there a cord attached?
Yeah."
Probably been like, what's a coin? You mean a Bitcoin?
Speaking of cords, my one, you had the thing with, you know, them dropping the saw. I'm like, he plugs in the saw.
He's walking around.
I'm like, how long is this cord going to go?
Okay. We've got to talk about this scene and okay, but real quick. There's the kidnapping mystery and all this stuff. But at one point there's a lovely young school teacher. And I really felt this death not because we spend that much time with this teacher, but you see her in the context of a classroom, like the kids are out, you know, playing or whatever. You see that she teaches young kids, you know, she keeps their drawings, everything. She seems like a really sweet person. She lives alone. She's got some like kid stuff around her apartment.
She's got a hot body.
Yes.
Well, there's that
Shepherd.
I'm trying to keep it classy here, Bryan. So
good luck.
I'm going to mute you for a few minutes. Classy with a capital K, but no, just the idea of her being like this innocent, this, you know, person who's trying to do real good in the world, especially when we realize that and I don't remember, there's so many different connections and red herrings, as we mentioned, she somehow knew the killer because she welcomes him into her apartment. But the problem I have, or there's two problems with this scene, even though it ends awesome with the mutilation or the dismemberment. It's that thing where she invites the killer in. We see from the killer's POV. She's like, "Oh, hi, welcome. Come on in." And the person doesn't say anything, but it's cutting back and forth, I think, between this scene and another scene, possibly involving Hilton. But every time it goes back, we spend like a couple minutes with him in the apartment with her. I'm like, is it normal to just have someone come to your place and just not have them say anything? Like, just walk around your apartment.
Dude,
and be like,
it's the 70s. It's the 70s. Like, it was a different time.
Sure, but that's the other thing is when she realizes she's in danger, we are following the killer like around her giant apartment, which is it's like Friends Central Perk style. Like, how the hell is she affording this amazing place?
Yeah.
But she realizes she's in trouble. Why doesn't she bolt for the door? Like, she watches him
She's
walk.
wearing a bathrobe.
Yeah, right. Like,
thank you for clearing that up.
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree. It was definitely one of those, and had my wife been in the room, she'd been like, "What the hell? Why do women, why are women in these movies?"
I keep wondering, why are women in these movies too? Sorry, no, that's a whole other conversation.
It is very much a sense of like, why is she just standing around waiting to get killed? Because that's kind of her job.
Yeah, and I wondered also, maybe she was doing projects or something, but it just seemed like such a random thing to have this workbench with this saw sitting like.
Yeah, why does she have yeah, exactly. That is funny. That is her saw that gets used against her.
Yeah,
it's not even like
she was doing some work in the kitchen,
No, that's not what I'm trying to insinuate, Brian. But no, I'm just saying, like, it just seems like in this regular apartment, there's like a wooden table with an electrical saw sitting on it. It's not like there's workbench with other tools or like furniture.
Yeah.
She's like,
it's just
obviously
randomly
making something. It's just there.
It's just there.
I'm sure somebody was at the Italian hardware store and they saw that and they were like, "Ooh, we could totally use that in the Tonino movie."
As Hitchcock liked to say, that's a way Homer. It's like you're watching it, in the moment you're like, that was amazing, and then later you're like, that was what the hell was happening?
Right.
I like that, a way Homer. I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, that's the conversation on the way home. You're like, hey, wait a minute.
But more importantly, like with that scene, I love how there's like a couple of gags beforehand, right? Like you got the guy that's following her when she's trying to get home, and he sticks the umbrella in the door, and it's like, oh my god, she's gonna get killed. And then it's like it doesn't become an issue, and then she's like alone in her apartment and she's looking around and she's like, she goes up to the window and there's a fucking glove on a clothesline, a random
what
glove.
Is that?
Like,
also, what's that?
She was hanging her rubber glove out to dry.
The one rubber glove.
And it's hilarious.
Your dishes clean at all? I mean,
it's so hilarious and it's so over the top in terms of like
it's
fake
outrageous.
Me out jump scares or whatever.
Yeah.
But I like that he's playing with the audience. I like that he's like, let me just stick some fake outs here and then set them up for the heavy metal death scene with the circular saw. You know what I mean? Because in essence, that murder scene, if you're a connoisseur of murder scenes, such as I, it's very I think the next time we see something like that, we see it in Tenebrae, where we see blood splatter or whatever, right? Like, you get the sense, and this is 72. This is 1972. So you're seeing a lot of this cool shit happen for the genre, and it's still early on in the genre. It's more so like I would say like the peak of the genre, because from there it kind of dwindles, and then you get little sporadic highs again throughout the 70s. But this one is like 1972. You're coming right from like the Sergio Martino stuff. And a couple of them are in the same year. So it's like, if you're looking at it in that regard, where all these films came out, it's such oh man, what a time to like just be alive in a year where you're seeing all this jolly come out.
It's you just mentioned the Argento, because I also was like, oh, wait a minute, we got a child's drawing that factors heavily into this. It's like, hang on, this is like 3 years before Deep Red.
Exactly.
I was like, hang on a second. Like, this movie's perhaps more. Also, the Ennio Morricone did the score, and that lullaby. Dude, I'm like, hang on a second. Dario was like sitting there taking notes, going,
You're giving me multiple orgasms right now. Just so
I'm so happy to be to give you pleasure.
Don't get your camera, Brian, please.
Hang on. You also realize that the little girl is in Tenebrae.
Yep.
Is that right?
So she's the one that's chased by the dog.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
that. There is another connection there. So Argento definitely went, hey, let's get that little girl so I can kill her too.
And you have an Ennio Morricone score with Bruno Nicolai. Like it's such a it's like you were sort of conveying, AC. Like this is such, like I would say it deserves more credit in that regard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was surprised at like the timestamp on it.
Yes.
Compared to the things that we were seeing afterwards. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like.
Yep.
You know, maybe like Argento's like, well, I can't steal from Sergio. They'll know.
Right. Let's steal from this one guy that made.
Let's steal from this forgotten one.
Yeah, exactly. This
And
guy.
That's kind of what I'm baffled by, the fact that you guys say that Valerii, this was his one and done for the genre. Sorry, Valerii. This is his one and done for the genre. Or the genre. I'm not going to do that.
Don't do that.
So, but could it be that because you're saying it was so influential, and we've talked about so many movies from so many different years, like before and after and all that stuff, it's hard for me to keep track. I can't even remember what I've seen George Hilton in, if it gives you an idea. Is it possible that people found this, and to like what you're saying, I'm not going to steal from the big dogs, but here's this thing that has a lot of, it's going under the radar. People
It's
won't
what
know that I've stolen
Tarantino
this.
does all the time.
Right, but I mean, just like in the moment, taking one example that no one's seen before and saying, I'm going to put my own twist on it.
You know, I will mention, like, maybe it's not necessarily stealing. Maybe it's just a lot. It's like an orgy of ideas, right? Like,
what is going on over there, Brian?
I'm sorry.
Orgies and orgasms.
It's my goddamn birthday, okay? I can say orgy.
No, it was yesterday. Get over it.
Whatever. It's my birthday weekend, John. Okay.
I just want to make sure
you don't have
enough...
Pinterest. Like they have birthday weekends, like
Brian. I just want to make sure there's enough distance between what you're talking about now and the scene that we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes. I just want to give you some nice breathing room there, because
before we kind of dive into that, whatever.
Bad choice of words, sir.
Yes.
I mean, you know who you're talking to, right?
Yes.
But no, like this movie. Before we go delve into that territory, I do believe, like, wholeheartely, if you're a Giallo fan, this movie has a lot of those key elements that you're looking for that you might not necessarily be like, you've done the Martinos, you've done the Fulcis, you've done the Argentos, you've done the Bianchis, all these, the Delamanos, right? Like you've done all the the obscure ones, the Lenzis. And then you get to this one and it's like, oh my God, like, is there any more from this guy? Nope, there's not, right? But at the same time,
box checked.
He's got so much packed into this film where it would be a crime not to like experience this film within your Giallo journey.
That was a good choice of words, by the way.
Thank you. So for that, John is so correct in terms of recommending this film for Accademia Giallo. Yeah.
Yes, spot on. I would like to see, just as a gag, if there is another home video release of this, someone just puts the Valerii collection.
$80. You get a box set.
All right. So, okay. Before we talk about the ending, which we kind of teased it, but I want to talk about that for the many reasons I love it. But I want to talk about this shocking scene, because our detective Luca. Well, sorry. Before I forget, one of the things I dig about this, we talked about Luca and his girlfriend and the kind of like home problems they have. I was fully expecting, because all of these kind of movies do this, that the killer is going to end up targeting Luca and trying to get at the people that he loves, and she's going to end up, being fridged or something like that, or kidnapped and he has to save her. No, it's just that, kind of like separating work from the personal life.
Yeah.
Like her last scene is him like calling her and saying, I've got to go, or something like that, before he goes off and, kind of solves the case.
I would like make a play, like, and this is, I don't know what the schedule is for next month or whatever, but this movie should be paired with like a Black Belly with the Tarantula, Black Belly of the Tarantula, because they're so similar in regards to like in that movie, it's what's his name in Black Belly of the Tarantula? He's in a James Bond movie and whatnot.
Roger Moore.
I wish Troy was here, because he just like, he's got the names of all these guys just like on the tip of his tongue at any given moment. But no, he's a famous Italian actor. He's in that movie. I think there's so many parallels with this one and Black Belly of the Tarantula. The different styles, different techniques used or whatever, but you got a detective that is trying to solve like a murder case. And then in that one, it's more so like his personal life sort of gets targeted. Whereas this one, it doesn't really happen. But like to your point, that does happen in some of these movies, just not in this one. It's almost like it's sort of like an annoyance for him in this movie, that like he's got to live a regular life or whatever. That's why I like the Batman so much, because like he's trying to be the Batman. Now he's trying to be fucking Bruce Wayne or whatever. Over here, it's like he's trying to like solve this case. And meanwhile, he's got this like annoying relationship with his girlfriend that he's got to contend with on a nightly basis. You know what I mean? So I like that.
Is she a doctor?
Yep.
Okay, because they don't like make a big deal of it. I think it's like in the initial conversation, she's on the phone with somebody and kind of mentions that. I'm like, I love this dynamic, because even though she isn't fully involved in the story, like the murder plot, I'm curious about like what the relationship is. I'm like, after this movie is done, I want to know what happens to them and how they work all their stuff out.
He's such an asshole to her. Like the way that he's like yelling at her. Like meanwhile, she's got valid points. Like she's like, she wants to have this relationship with him. He's like, shut up. Like it's like, come on, dude. Like, but yeah, right. But it's also a testament as to how like in it he is. Like he's true. This is affecting like
he's committed to his work.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, so let's talk about that shocking scene. At one point, when Luca is making the rounds to interrogate, various witnesses and suspects and all that, it's the sculptor, right? He goes to visit a sculptor because there is a fragment of, plaster or a statuary found at one of the murder scenes. Wasn't it in the hair of the lady who was strangled hilariously, I might add,
at the post office.
At the post office, I was like, "Wait, is she really dead?" It didn't look like that was a killing move.
Well, and
like
also
with the scarf or whatever.
Yeah.
But so he goes to interrogate this sculptor, and he's talking about the little girl who's kidnapping and subsequent murder along with her father from a couple of years ago, whatever, is sort of becomes the story of this movie, this kind of wider conspiracy, if you will. And he's talking about this little girl, and then all of a sudden you hear this little girl off screen. Like, oh, someone's, one of his models is going to come wandering in or something. And this completely naked 8, 9, 10, I don't know how old this girl was, but she just walks into frame. And it's not like, she's not like a spooky kid or anything like that. She's just
it's so creepy.
It is creepy because it's so wrong. I mean, we talk about like movies from the 70s, like, animal cruelty and all that stuff. This is almost kind of in the same vein.
Too. What they insinuate too. And then when George Hilton is leaving and she's playing, like she's doing the jump ropes and he's just like that the scene just like lingers there or whatever. Yeah. And then they make it into part of like the actual narrative. Like, it's just such a creepy vibe. You know what I mean?
It just feels like the inclusion in the story. Like if I were reading this in the novel, I'd be like, oh, that's kind of ooky. But the fact that they like got a little child actress and said, okay, I don't know if they told her what the whole story was going to be, or if she's like, okay, just walk into this room and say, hey, I'll be back here whenever you're ready to paint me or whatever she said. I don't even know what she said because I was too busy. Like, what am I watching? Because you see her and you see everything. It's all laid out there, and it's not meant to be titillating or whatever. It's meant to be shocking.
It's handled with that, right? With that, like, but the fact that it's there in a Giallo and what we're talking about and whatnot, like I feel like that's why I hesitate in recommending this movie, because it has all the amazing things that you would ever want in a Giallo, and then you're watching it and you see that, right? Like I was actually enjoying a nice cup of Ben and Jerry's cookie dough ice cream as I'm watching this movie, and then I see that and I'm just like, oh, like it's like
ice cream reminds me of innocence. I can't eat this anymore.
Yeah, right.
It's the cookie dough that is the innocent part, but no, it's such but like it does pertain to the movie. It does pertain to the narrative of what we're watching.
Well,
It's
And
just
it casts the suspicion upon the sculptor. I mean,
sure,
which is really, like that's I feel like that's what it's there for.
Could they have done it a different way? Maybe?
Of course they could have.
Right.
But I mean, I guess I don't. It's funny because you were talking about the scene. I'm like, I don't actually know what you're talking about, because it didn't phase me in that same way. I found it. In fact, I mean, I thought about it, like, okay, that is there in order to cast,
Right.
suspicion on, but I mean, because she's not sexualized on screen, and there's nothing overt actually stated. It didn't. I guess it didn't strike me as perverse. It struck me as okay. That and as you said, it could have been done a different way. You could have intimated that there was, that he does paint children and they're in a state of undress, and that probably occurred with, I'm spacing out on our little girl's name who was kidnapped. But I mean, it could have happened with that as well.
I think it's Stefania.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like, like you start, I think your wheels start turning and you're going, oh, what does that mean?
Yep.
But in terms of actually being shocking, I guess I wasn't as shocked as perhaps I should have been. But I just kind of took it as, okay, that's a really interesting way to introduce information into the plot.
Well, I
Then
think
keep
Go
in
ahead, sorry,
mind,
John.
and Don't Torture a Duckling, there is an
I was
obvious,
just going. Yep. I was
obvious
just
sexual reference.
Right.
Granted,
Right.
it's flipped with an adult, someone that's naked, and a little boy.
Right.
But I mean, that is implied of what she flat
Right,
out
right.
asked him.
Right.
So maybe because it's on the flip side, and any young male is going to be watching that going, oh man, where you flip it around now, we're going, oh, that guy's fucking creepy.
Right. It's perspective sometimes, like it, and the way that it happens, that it's not overt or whatever, but the insinuation is what catches you throughout the movie. You know what I mean? It's like, we're going in this direction, and then they just showed me what I just saw. It's like, like it doesn't sit too well with me.
Well,
it doesn't take away from the overall experience of the film. But yeah, I see what Ian is saying.
And when he reveals. When Hilton reveals the back of the mirror to the sculptor, he loses it.
Yep.
Because he really, I get the sense that he really cared about her, and I don't think from a perverse sexual way. I think from a genuine, I love the innocence of children, and that's why I love to paint them or whatever. And so that's why, like, when he shows him, it's like, oh, that's the killer. I'm going to kill him.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I was really kind of struck by, that the emotional arc of that character specifically, because he could have been a pervert. And in fact, he's not. He's actually a true artist.
And that's what I think is, that's what I'm sort of zeroing in on here. In the moment I was shocked because, I mean, I can't think of there probably is another movie that I could point to where there is that, shocking image of like a young girl, being fully, I won't say exploited, but, kind of something that's meant to punctuate a scene and kind of drive a point home. I'm not used to seeing, fully naked, minor girls on film.
Right.
For the record, internet.
Put that link in the comments below. Yeah.
I didn't even understand what I was looking at. No. But what I'm saying is Valerii goes so far to put out this red herring in his film. It's like the most extreme, because then you're just looking at this sculptor, much as Luca is, like, should I be investigating this guy? Do I need to open up a sub case on top of this other case? But he's like, well, he is just an artist and I don't have anything else to go on. So whatever. And then at the end, AC, to your point, that I love that there is a red herring up to the very almost last minute of the film, because you figure when Luca is going around the room with the mirror and he flips it over and you see the sculptor lose his mind, you figure, oh, this guy's caught. Right. And then the lights go out, but then lights come on and they're struggling and everything. But it's still hard to understand really what is happening in that scene, because there's so many bodies and so many, parts of the room, and the lights are just coming on and there's struggles. And you see the real culprit kind of cowering behind a chair or something like that before he's revealed. And you're like, wait a second, it's not him, it's this other guy. But how do they know? And then the last shot is, Stefani is drawing that kind of fingers our killer, which is ironic because he's only got one hand. But it's a wonderful, like I said, a red herring up to the very end of the film. And I also dig that we have no idea what is on the back of that mirror.
Right.
It's not like, oh, the detective figured it out and now we know what's going on, so now we get to go watch people stew in their seats. But no, it's Valerii keeps us in the dark literally up until the last frame.
I will mention, and I put it in my notes, I should have referred to my notes, but it's Giancarlo Giannini is the name of the actor from Black Belly of the Tarantula.
Right.
And I actually have it written down. Don't forget, his name is Giancarlo Giannini because you always forget shit, you idiot. So that I have that in my notes.
Actually,
as well.
isn't he?
Nice.
Is he? I think he's in Hannibal, and maybe one of the James Bond movies.
Yeah, I said. Yeah, he's in.
I think that's okay.
Casino Royale.
Yeah, he's in the early. That's right. He's in the first two of the Daniel Craig ones.
Yep.
Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's anything.
While you're all perusing your notes, I'm looking at my notes. I did want to just point out how much I enjoyed our junk man and his wacky relationship with his lady friend. You had Mattia, the junk man he's in the freebie business, where he goes and gathers things, which I thought was hilarious. And I love his lady friend Adele, because she actually ends up being like a superhero at the end. Yeah. She's the one who basically retains the vital piece of evidence that the killer is chasing after. So I dug both of those performances.
And while we're reading our notes, I do want to mention that I wrote down how much I adored all the police in the car scene when they're going to the station. It looks like they're going 100 miles an hour, and the guy in the back with the comb over, it's like all over his face or whatever. I love that scene. It harkens back to old Hollywood, and they can never replicate anything just like that one scene. I love that it's there, and it's chef's making.
I think the junk man and Adele is the future Luca and his girlfriend.
There you go.
It seems that's the angle that their relationship is going, where he's just a complete bastard, and she's like, "Oh, I'm still gonna be, we're still together. I don't live here, but
They reminded me of the old couple from The Princess Bride.
Yeah, sure.
Carol Kane and Billy Crystal.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right, AC, in terms of her scene at the end. It's another, you expect her to be the final victim because she's attacked, but she survives. She fends off the killer with the mirror, and it's like without he almost got away with it. Like if it was just like blind or dumb luck that the killer was not caught. Was it there was a joke about Luca's impotence, and I think one of the detectives called him up and said, "I hope it's a boy." I don't know. He's talking about caught him in bed with his wife or his girlfriend. So good.
Yeah, the banter with the cops was actually really enjoyable. It wasn't like, cheesy.
There's so many good things about this film.
Well, and I go ahead. Sorry, Brian.
No. Like to your point, like it's an enjoyable film. There's so many great elements. They actually, I would actually argue that some of the more staple Giallo films are a little lesser compared to this film in terms of dialogue, in terms of acting. George Hilton's mustache, like it's got all the peak things that you would want in a film like this.
Well, talking about the dialogue, I didn't realize, but Roberto Leone, who co-wrote the script, he co-wrote Santa Sangre with Alejandro Jodorowsky,
and he wrote a lot of these movies too.
Yeah, I didn't realize, like he and who's his partner on this one, Franco Buccieri. They were a writing team for several of these, and I was like, oh wait, I had no idea, because I always just think of Santa Sangre as a Jodorowsky film, and to realize, oh, there's actually another voice going on there.
Right.
And here he is popping up here. I think this is probably only the second time I've seen one of his scripts put on screen.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask if you guys know about this or if you have any theories, but as far as the screenplay, how much that got translated into the directing, because there was a couple of really impressive transitional shots within these scenes that a little bit disorienting, but once I realized what I was looking at was, I think, just perfect. The one that springs to mind is when our old junk collector guy gets murdered in his place. I think he's beaten to death about the head with the statue.
Yeah.
Yep.
You cut from the killer like in the room with this guy, and as we move out, it cuts to a different POV of the film of the room, right? And you think there's someone in there standing over the body. Are we going to get a look at our killer? No, it's Luca.
Right.
They just cut to sometime later. He finds the body.
Time jump. Yeah.
It's a time jump almost within the same shot of the scene. Like, oh my God, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Because you're almost wondering, wait, how is he the killer? Is he covering up his like? Now I have to know what's going on in this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, from the construction of the decapitation in the beginning to what I thought was a really cool reveal of the rock tumbling down the hill and into the water, and then the mirror tumbling down the hill during the flashback. That really creepy montage of Stefania with all of the different men who are kind of in her family or her family's friends, hang out with her and adoring over her. You're like, I don't know if it kind of made me wonder if I had a little girl, would I let all these dudes like spend all this time alone with her? It's just very odd.
To your point, because I think this is where you were going with it. Like Tonino Valerii is like, I wish we would have seen more from him. Like he actually is really talented in terms of storytelling and filmmaking. Like,
well, he did do a lot of screenwriting.
I was gonna say, yeah.
But I mean, like more so, like if he had directed like 10 of these Giallo movies during,
if he directed the movies that you wanted to watch, as opposed to,
I mean,
his Day of Anger is fantastic. It's a really solid Lee Van Cleef Western, really solid.
No, yeah, like his spaghetti Western is great.
Yeah.
But like I'm just saying, like for example, Margaretti. Like I wish he would have made more of these movies. Like unfortunately. He didn't, but he's got like a lot of really cool ideas. Delamano, like I think he died in that car accident way too premature because,
I'm sure he agreed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
but supposed to die in a car accident 6 months later is what you're
like,
saying.
I think what is it? Rings
Way
of
too
Fear.
early.
Rings of Fear was written by him, but it was directed by somebody else. Like I think that would have been a lot more interesting had he directed that movie. Like it's just certain flavors of these Italian filmmakers. You get a sense that had they spent a little bit more time within the genre, like the Argentos and the Fulcis wouldn't be alone. Like with like some like you just get a sense that in this film he's so talented in what he's doing.
Yeah,
I would have loved to see more output like in the genre from him.
Sure.
I agree. It'd be cool to see him as sort of a titan of the genre. I mean, you talk about Argento and some of these heavy hitters that we remember. If some of the folks who just kind of like got into the genre and got out, kind of one or two hit wonders or forgotten gems, if they had really shown, would we be remembering them instead of some of these other icons? It's just a cool alternate reality to think about. So yeah, we're just about at our hour here. I don't want to keep everybody after class. I know it's zipped right by because we were talking about
this
piracy.
Is what happens when we all bring notes.
Yes. But we've covered it all. We've covered piracy, underage nudity, all this stuff that's going to get us kicked off the internet and possibly put in jail.
It's been a slice, folks.
Yes. No, but yeah, thank you. Do we have any final thoughts on My Dear Killer?
John, any parting thoughts since it was your recommendation?
I just think it's really good. It's got an all-star cast. It's really well made, and I don't know if I would consider it be forgotten, but if it gets more people to watch it, then so be it. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well said.
One of my favorites, I think, of the ones we've talked about for sure. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. we have our one comment from DN. Let's see. Another hour. Come on.
Let's go. Come on.
I'm sorry. I can't do it. I've got other things to do, including planning our next few shows.
That's so good though.
Thank
Thank you, DM.
Yeah, right. Like that's awesome. Like you almost feel like, are we annoying people? Are we? And then like you get a comment like that. It's like, let's go. Come on.
Oh no, he's that person is absolutely annoyed. So like, could be another hour of something that's actually worth listening to. That'd be great.
Be about 105. Oh, that's it. I'm done.
No, I like to think that the first period after hour should have been a question mark. It was a mistake.
Yeah, right.
Like another hour. Come on. I'm leaving. No, but so yeah, just want to mention there's been some, developments and stuff. Hopefully we're going to have some really cool guests, some returning guests, psyched. some nice folks coming to join the panel in the coming months. So thank you for tuning into Accademia Giallo.
Our little Accademia Giallo class is growing. It's like,
it's wonderful. Hold on a second. Let's see. Not being sarcastic.
See? You see, let's go. Come on, guys.
Love it.
No, don't leave.
Dean, I would just say, if you haven't watched our other classes, go ahead and look at the Accademia Giallo playlist. You can get more than an hour of this, and we'll be back next month talking about something. We got to plan the whole, scheduling and what we're going to be talking about.
The curriculum, as it were.
The curriculum, yes. Thanks for keeping us on brand. But yes, I am always, as always, Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat, John Kitley of Kitley's Crypt and Discover the Horror podcast, AC of Horror 101 with Dr. AC, Bryan Martinez of the Giallo Room. Thank you, everybody. This has been a really fun episode. I wasn't sure where it was going to go considering what we were talking about, but wow. Okay, wait. Final comment. We're going to get it in before we close out because this is nice. Good show, guys. Thank you, Darren Burrows. We appreciate it.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
He actually has his own podcast devoted to Jolly, so really cool to see him pop on here and say hi.
All right. Well, do you know the name of the podcast, or Darren, if you can pop it in real quick, we'll happy to plug it.
And while we're plugging things, please like, subscribe, etc. to Kicking the Seat. We have, of course. I mean, I knew you were going to do it, but yes. And comments are always welcome below after we're done here.
Yes, Ian does a great show called "Don't Read the Comments," which I'm a huge fan. I'm addicted to those shows. I think I set a notification thing, so I now know when those shows are on. But yeah,
awesome. Well, thank you. I'm glad people are enjoying it.
There you go.
Eurocult podcast. Okay, consider it plugged and soon to be subscribed by me. That sounds awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody. We're gonna let everybody get back to whatever they're doing, which is not talking about Giallo for another hour, unless you want to do
murdering
it on your
supermodels.
Own time. Marrying or murdering? What?
Murdering fashion models. That's what I've been doing.
Do not endorse. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. And till next time, whatever that is, thanks. Bye. Take care. And class dismissed. And